Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, live the life we love. It's Friday, so it's my PowerPoint days. I'm going to ramble on with the kind of shots that I used to put up on the wall and do my little one-liners here. Starting off, this is entitled Yogis Hate to Have Their Peace Disturbed. We try to do everything to promote peace, maintain that peace, and certainly avoid disturbing it from within ourselves, but also create harmony in our daily life with other people, because there's a lot of other discordant energies out there that we have to, I don't want to say combat, it sounds like we're in a war zone, but either skillfully disregard or learn how to flow with it and turn something that might have been negative into something positive. So I'm starting with that poem from Rumi, let the beauty we love be what we do. There are thousands of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. So the visionary part is from Black Elk, the Wakantanka, the Holy Spirit of the Lakota Sioux. Great little quote. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in the sacred manner the shape of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together, like one being. He called it the hoop of many nations. So he was truly a rainbow warrior ahead of his time. Now, we have to take authoritative understanding, expert witness. Yeah, call Smokey the Bear. Absolutely, where there's smoke, there's fire. So yoga says you got to develop the witness to see the truth, and you can also accept on good authority somebody who says something that's true. There's a reason why you could believe them, a reason why they have knowledge and understanding. Otherwise, most of us are in a semi-sleep state. So the first thing, of course, is like recognize your own stuff. What are you carrying around? Like they say, you spot it, you got it. You see it in another person, what is it resonating in you? Now, Yogananda and his guru were really an important couple early on in my studies. Sri Yukteswar, as they say, as an elephant awakes in a dream when they see a tiger, from a dream when they see a tiger, so the disciple awakes from his or her slumber when they meet the guru. Have you found that quickening agent in your life? That person or that ideal that taps into the spirit inside yourself? Then you're duly empowered. All right, we move along. Meditation is like learning how to look through a camera lens. You know, you look into it and you see what's on the other side. Nothing is added, nothing is taken away, and the camera lens isn't identifying itself or thinking, I, me, mine. When you do this, you learn to loosen your grip, which is going to reduce your tension based on attachments to seeing things a certain way through your point of view. Can you just see it clearly instead of skewed with your twist on the whole thing? Albert Einstein said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So in our attempt to domesticate intuition, I love his statement that says, matter is spirit reduced to the point of visibility, just vibrating at a slower rate, so that instead of being at the speed of light, it becomes like a coagulum on the material plane. But behind that, it's just dancing atoms with a lot of empty space in between. All right, I love the hero's journey. It's one of the metaphors I use on an ongoing basis, that we all get to a point where if we hear the call, instead of refusing the call, we realize that our life as we had known it has grown too small. We can't be boxed into that. We need something great. And so we leave it, and then we face the tests and trials that every hero and heroine has always had to deal with when they go into the underworld, right? Below the surface consciousness, where the demons of our own limitation are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And you learn to do battle with those forces. And if you win, and there's no guarantee you win the battle, you come back and you bring the boon, you bring the gift, what you've wrested from the gods to your society, you reincorporate. And I always like to say it's just like a yoga class. You leave your shoes at the door, you've separated yourself from the world outside. The class itself is the test and the challenge, the trial. You make it through, and then you bring back what you've got from that class: greater patience, greater humor, greater insight, greater sense of humor, greater compassion for other people. Now, one of the things you learn from taking a class, and I always say to my students, fail joyfully, is nothing is going to appease the inner hunger that you have as much as learning how to put out the one with all your juice behind it. You can't do more than that. And so I hope you find what that is inside yourself and learn to do that in as many aspects of your life as you can. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, medicine go down, medicine go down. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in the most delightful way. I can't think of any other discipline that is so positive in engendering and conferring upon you these biochemical states in your brain, the apothecary of spirituality that's inside, to help you loosen up and go beyond the old samskars, the old deep impressions that we've all been bludgeoned into or hypnotized into. This is the sweetest path you can possibly imagine to help you release those shackles, whether they're self-forged or forged by society. But then when you do that, you have to accept that there's an aspect of reality that isn't secure. This is a quote from the Irish, my teacher Michael Mead. A false sense of security is the only kind there is. Everything is changing, everything is shifting. Ultimately, there's nothing to hold on to, right? Each chakra may be vying for supremacy. One wants you to survive, one wants you to enjoy, one wants you to dominate, one wants you to affiliate, one wants you to quest, one wants you to be intuitive, and one wants you to transcend your own sense of self. So you got to learn to run to the roar, not go away from the challenge. Like they say, the older lions who can't track as well, they put them downwind and they roar. And then the animals run away from that lion, but they run right into the pack waiting for lunch. Learn how to run to the roar in your life. See what that does. Now, they say a well thatched roof lets no rain get in. And that's why yogis hate to have their peace disturbed, right? If you thatch it well, then when the winds of change come, nothing gets in there to devastate you and create unhealthy conditions. But if your roof is not thatched well, then the elements come in and they make it more difficult to live there. So this is the lifestyle that we choose. It's like creating a well thatched roof. It blocks the elements that would be adversive in our life so that we're able to live more comfortably and healthily. Now, I always like to tell people the difference between getting high and being high, whether it's these crushed scorpions that they do in Afghanistan and add it to hashish or not. It's a heavy trip, like a mescaline trip or a psilocybin trip. But the basic difference is that if you get high, you come down. It's like heads and tails of a coin. The way the words are phrased, right? Getting high and coming down, they go together. And so you think like it's a really poor approach, not a good strategy. Because if you're going to come down every time you get high, why do you do that? Right? And you always say to people, don't bring me down. You're such a buzzkill. But if you ask the person, well, why do you get high even though you're going to come down? And the answer is always because being high is great. So then you have to ask yourself another question. If being high is what you're after, then it's not about getting high because you know you're going to come down. It's about getting rid of the stuff that keeps you down, and then you're high more of the time. So that's called working on yourself or being on the path or whatever word you want to use that indicates you got to get rid of that stuff. It prevents you from being high. And so if you don't know how to humble yourself before anything, you haven't found what I call the formless in all form. Stop being narrow-minded and thinking your path is the only one, the best one. Humble yourself and learn about another's path. And if your faith is so sturdy, you shouldn't be swayed by what other people are doing. But that means you have direct experience. That's why it's proved to you. And so I'm a big fan of the four aims of life as the Indian tradition articulates it. Everybody needs to do what they've called artha, accumulate enough stuff so you're not a parasite, you're not wanting for anything, but you're not fulfilling your greed, just your need. Then learn to enjoy, right? We're held accountable for every joy we're permitted to experience and don't take advantage of. That's karma, but you got to be not a hedonist, but a connoisseur of pleasures. But whether you accumulate or whether you enjoy, you put it all on the bridle of Dharma so that your actions are aligned with the overarching harmony. So you're doing everything that you could say is righteous behavior, virtuous behavior, ethical behavior, dharmic behavior. And yet all of those together lead you towards moksha, right? The experience of liberation, which means recognizing yourself as a microcosmic reflection in human form of the universal, abstract, invisible spirit. And then we understand that there's mysteries, and I use a form model a lot of the times to explain the mysteries, because the self is the totality of all potentials, where this what I call the royal part of yourself that has to decide and rule your realm, whether it's the wise part of yourself that has to have insight, knowledge, so you can make informed decisions, whether it's the action-oriented part of yourself that puts into play that which you decide. Once you want to uphold the vision, you got to embody it. And of course, the lover part of you that plays and displays and brings joy to what you're doing when there's a sense of integration. And then if you do that, remember these four archetypes have a negative or shadow side, and I suggest you avoid them to the best of your ability, first by becoming aware of them, and then choosing to find another way. If you're a ruler, nobody wants to be bossed around. The negative or shadow aspect of what I call the king and queen, the inner ruler, is bossiness. You have to learn to command and not demand, because you're there to bless, liberate, bring just order, the right kind of ruling, and don't abdicate the throne and pass the hot potato on to other people. Then, as a warrior, somebody has to be the one who stands up to sadistic abusers and creates boundaries to keep the negative energy out of the realm. Good thing about the warrior is that they serve the transpersonal end. They have mission, they have purpose, they have discipline, they have strategies. So reconnoiter, see what's going on before you make decision, and then you act without regret. Now, the medial woman, the crone, the magician, the wizard, whatever you want to call it, this is the part of you that learns knowledge. You have to detach yourself from the negative and attach yourself to the positive. This is where your own inner trickster that has a innate sense of what bullshit is. You have like a bullshit advisor. You can recognize it the moment you're with it. You don't buy it, because the real wise person suffers no fools. Also, when you contact the wise one in yourself, you'll find that it's connected very much to some kind of healing. So I always recommend that you find some way of dealing with healing, whether it's nutritional healing, massage healing, other kinds of body work, psychotherapy. Learn to heal the hurt part. And even if you recognize that you've been wounded, you're not wounded everywhere. So find that other part that's looking for and wanting to help out yourself and other people. And then, of course, the inner lover, the joy part, you have to make sure that your sensuality, your erotic nature serves beauty, right? You bring an aesthetic to your life, you bring joy to your life, and you avoid the addictive part that numbs you down so you don't feel, instead of using your vibrations to cultivate the connections between people, which can be really beautiful when it comes from the heart. And so remember, the king or the queen, the worst aspect is when you have no power. The warrior, the worst aspect is when you have no action. The magician or the wise person in you is the worst when it has no knowledge. And the lover is the part of you that shuts down and has no feeling. So those are all ways that you can see your peace gets disturbed if you don't have power, if you don't act, if you don't have knowledge, and you don't feel. So remember that the unconscious part of ourselves just below the surface speaks in symbolic analogy. I always like to talk about the dream that a person had where there was cables washed up on the seashore, telephone cables. And the dreamer realizes what it is. It's contact with the mainland. But its neighbors think it's ugly, don't see its usefulness, and they want to throw it back into the sea. But the dreamer is able to convince them of its functional, practical effectiveness, and they accept it. So what's the part of you that's contacting the deeper whole? That part which is either submerged within, below, or that which is beyond. If you understand this, you are now working what I call the alchemical crucible, where you're taking the primer material or the gunk in your own life and you're transforming it, as they used to say, to bring gold out of the base metal that we have. I hope you find your way. Have a great day and see you next week. We'll be doing the next Good Vibrations class on Wednesday, July 19th, entitled Yoga, Kundalini, and the Chakras. Have a great day.